Hey Stormers, welcome to part 9A. I'm calling it Their Diabolical Plan According to Rachel. This is Marley. She really wanted a chance to be in a video too, like her brother was. Do you want to say hi, Marley?
Hi, I'm writing down some notes, but I don't know really how to write, and I don't know really how to read, so I'm starting just making it up.
You're making it up? That's what Mommy does all the time. I love that. So, Marley, thank you for coming to be in the video, and I'm going to talk to the computer for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Will you close the door for me? Thanks. Thank you, Marley. Bye-bye.
Hi.
Okay. So, sorry it's taken me a few days to get back to you. I've been enjoying the long weekend with my family, and I've been busy trying to get lots of signatures for the petition. That was an awesome experience. I suggest everyone, I hope everyone had a chance to do that. Get out into the public and talk to some people. I know I said I'd only make one more video, but it looks like part 9 will be in 2 parts because there's a lot to cover. Okay, so let's get right down to it. The Liberals are showing no sign of slowing down the process of putting their legislation through. In fact, their communications department is kicking into full gear right now. We've got 1 week to stop or at the very least delay the legislation until proper consultation. If the government were to wait until summer to push this legislation, then at least mass protests that will come will not affect our students. So I encourage everyone to write their MLAs and at least ask them to do that. We need to at least get, yes, honey, come in here. You've got something to show. Sorry, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, I don't know if they can see you because I can't see the camera. Come sit up here so they can see and show your new toy. Yeah.
This is my new toy.
It was your birthday last week, right? Okay, and show quickly tell who it is and what it is.
This is Black Panther from the Black Panther movie.
Very cool. Okay, I need you to go, close the door, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay? Bye.
Bye.
Okay. We need to at least get them to pause the legislation. So where do we even start to do that? Well, okay, let's talk about the election. The Liberals won the last election by 39.5% of the vote. That was down 6.2 from 2013. It is also so important to say that only 53.4% of Nova Scotian eligible voters voted. So in reality, they were given a majority mandate by only 21% of eligible voters in our province. Voter disengagement is a sign of how hopeless and overwhelmed many of us feel. We must do something to get people engaged before the next election. So if you're feeling inspired in any way, whether it's anger or you're feeling quite keen on what the government is doing, you need to start talking to neighbors, getting people to start talking about all this, because we can't help ourselves if our government is being elected by 21% of us. With that 21% that gave them their majority, they will push through changes that affect all of us with relative ease because of this majority, unless we organize to stop them. There is no doubt that they are choosing the time to make these sweeping changes. They chose now, this February, because there is no pending election in the near future. They're hoping, because they know historically this is what happens, they're hoping if they do this now, most people will forget it even happened by the time the next election rolls around. and we'll return to our lull of disengagement. That's what they want. There's a child at the door again. You're going to have to close the door, Marley. Mommy needs her time to make this video, okay? Sorry. They want us to go back to sleep, so to speak. But I really hope that won't happen. What they fail to realize is that they have created such shocking changes in health and education and the democratic system and collective bargaining that many of us are waking up, and we may never go back to sleep again in our lifetime. We're never going to take our feet off the pedal. We're going to be watching every government to come. In fact, many of us are becoming so angry about what they're doing that some of us will wake up our inner 4-year-old and grab the pots and pans and make lots of noise until other Nova Scotians wake up too. The government, they have created chaos in our already bogged down education system 2 years in a row now. The teachers didn't do this. The government did. Now they are saying principals have until January 2019 to make their decision if they're returning to the classroom or not. Don't fall for that, people. I'm telling you, don't fall for that. They have put it out like an olive branch, like we'll extend the deadline. If they extend the deadline to January 2019, that only brings chaos in January 2019. So that will, again, it will be the 3rd year in a row that they've set the timetable for us to be, having these kind of discussions in the 3rd winter in a row. That's what they're going to do. They probably, in my opinion, they probably only offered that extension because they have heard from enough administrators and they know most of them are or will be returning to class. That's what I'm assuming. And and the government had no plan for that and never had a plan of how to deal with the changes that would come if all of the principals stepped back to the classroom. So now they have to backpedal a little, and they present it to the public as a gracious way of giving the principals a little bit of extra time to make their decision. But in reality, they're only extending the time before the principals are removed and separated from their charter right to choose the union for which they want to belong. They are aware, the government are aware that this change, the principals going back to the classroom, will put tremendous pressure on the seniority system. And the fact is they will have few qualified people to manage their schools come September. Whether that's this September coming up or the September of 2019. Whatever September it is, it's going to be unbelievable how this is going to be if non-teachers are going to be principals. And the more I think about it, maybe principals should still decide to go back to the classroom. They should decide this spring to come back to the classroom for September. Then at least we can have a full school year, 2018, 2019, where we can try to start to pick up the pieces of the change before our legislated contract ends in June of 2019. So the contract that they legislated us into ends June of 2019. That's a year and a half from now. And most likely, every few years from now until the dawn of time, unless the government begins to consult with the people in the areas that they seem hell-bent on destroying, every few years there's going to be work stoppages. There's going to be arguments in the media, all designed to distract us from the privatization of the system. Don't believe me? Well, since the government's hired an Ontario expert to tell us all about Nova Scotia, let's take a few minutes to look at what must be a very stable system that we are striving for, right? Or will their example act as a lighthouse, shining the light for us before we crash into the rocks? So in the 1990s, Ontario had a premier named Mike Harris. He was elected after the public ousted an NDP government that they were really angry at for what they considered to be mismanagement of the money of the province. Kind of like what happened when in 2013 when the Liberal government was elected after the Dexter government. Well, anyway, the Harris government loved to legislate unions into contracts without collective bargaining. In 1997, they proposed a bill, Bill 160, that was going to increase the face-to-face teacher-student time, which is great, except it had no compensation for the teachers. So they were going to be increasing the workload of the teachers, but not compensating them for it. This angered everyone so much because it wasn't negotiated, it couldn't be negotiated into the contract, so they legislated it. This angered everyone so much that the principals and vice principals even joined the picket line. Government was not happy about that. But that's what happened, and I think, the government probably thought, like, who do these people think they are, standing against the mighty Ontario government? Well, not only did they stand, but they stood for 2 weeks straight. They marched for 2 weeks straight, and you would think, would have made a difference, but the government went and pushed that legislation through, despite the mass job action. The very next year, in September 1998, school started late for around 200,000 kids because I think around, I can't remember exactly, less than 10 boards, I think around 8 boards or so, they stood against the back-to-work legislation. So they were being forced back to work, and then there were 2 months of strife across the regions, and 108 public elementary schools in November 1998 went on strike. But it was only after they were locked out for 5 days. And then the teachers did rotating strikes from school to school. In 2002, there was another action that was solved by arbitration. At the same time, the Catholic School Board went... So that's something to understand, the difference between Ontario and... One of the differences between Ontario and Nova Scotia is that they have many different unions. So they have a secondary school teachers union and an elementary school teachers union, and they have many different types of boards as well. So Catholic boards and public boards, but the instability that started in 97. It just continued throughout all different kinds of situations. In 2003, the Toronto Catholic District School Board locked their teachers out for 2 weeks. Then the government forced the teachers back to work. So I don't really understand that one. Maybe someone that's watching that's from Ontario Catholic District School Board can explain, but their employer locked them out and then the government forced them back to work. Doesn't make sense to me. There was peace until 2012 when the teachers walked off the job and shut down schools across the province. This was after a series of rotating one-day strikes over the previous weeks. And they were protesting Bill 115, which is very important. Look up Bill 115. This bill allowed the province to impose labor contracts on teachers and limit their ability to strike. That's what our government is doing to the teachers now. So legislating labor contracts. Soon they will, probably after, if we do go on strike, it will be after this strike. They will limit our ability to strike. This bill with 115 was actually ironically called Put the Students First Act. But it was later repealed, and the province had to pay for their infringement on the rights of their teachers. I'm going to stop the list there, although it goes on and on and on. With job actions going into 2016, and they even had a college strike in 2017. I bring up this history in Ontario to make a few points. First, every time there is a lockout or a strike or a walkout, not just any strike action, a walkout, the teachers aren't paid. Why would job action where the teachers aren't paid be something the government might want? Well, during the time that school is off, they can spin the media, spin the dialogue and the discourse to get the public blaming the greedy teachers, and at the same time save millions by not paying them. And then sweep in and spend the money they have saved to their political gain. I think that is what will happen here in Nova Scotia over the next few weeks. I think the government wants us to strike. Then they can have our pay and the money that they will fine us on top of that, and then use that money to maybe bring some changes to the system, like the upcoming recommendations in the inclusion report. Those recommendations are most likely going to cost the government a lot of money, and the government knows it. So, by setting this timetable, by creating legislations that they knew the teachers wouldn't stand by and just watch happen, they're pushing us into a strike so that they will be able to pay for the changes in the inclusion recommendations, gaining favor to the public. The public will continue to have the teachers, to have the ability to hate on the teachers that went on strike. So the government will have free rein to continue to attack our public school system and our union, and sell off the public school system to the highest bidder. Make no mistake about it, it's the teachers' salaries and fines that will pay for all of those changes. So in the end, teachers have hard jobs, little respect from the public, and in many ways will pay more than any other citizens in taxes to keep the public schools going, because the government will let us. This is their plan. This is their plan from the beginning. They want us to go on strike so that our salaries pay for the changes they want. If the teachers give a strong mandate to strike and decide to use it, watch for the government to allow the illegal strike to happen and continue for 3, 5, 10 school days. Because if it's long enough, the teachers will also lose their pension year. And that will save the government even more money. But the teachers will still stand out there with their signs, even though they risk losing their pension year too. Will anyone see us? Will anyone outside of us realize how important this is? Why would the teachers risk their pay and their pension or their jobs? Why would they do this for legislation that has nothing to do with their pay, if we're so selfish? So with all the money that the government saves off of our strike, then they will use this money to implement the inclusion report recommendations, which I've never seen the report. It hasn't been released, but I hope they're great. I hope that they're bringing supports to the classroom, and someone should pay for it. The government should. All of the taxpayers' money that goes to the government that they budget for education should. Not the wages of the teachers. That means that the 9,000 teachers are paying those taxes, that tax money. That's not right. So they'll pay for the implementation of the inclusion recommendations. So again, they have set the timeline. The government has. The government knows the students will miss school, and the government knows the longer the strike goes that the students will risk their graduation or their hockey season or whatever else that the parents, rightfully so, will be concerned about. And they know that working parents will have a hard time finding childcare. The government knows all this, but they don't care about that. If they did, they would change the timeline. If they cared about all those things, they would change the timeline. The teachers are only standing up against what they believe is wrong. They did not set the timeline. They want the public to hate the teachers as much as possible, so that no one looks closely at the effects this legislation will have on the public education system. They think they have it all figured out. They think they have outsmarted us all. So if this goes down, how I'm imagining, please don't be fooled. Stand your ground, stand with us, and let's be the storm together. Stay tuned for Part 9B. Thank you.